Hello, welcome to day 17 of reviewing the book Making It Big by Femi Otedola, and we are currently in lesson 16. What does lesson 16 say? Weather the storm wisely and bravely. You can remember this is section 4, and section 4 is about the collapse and the rebirth. I like this lesson for one thing. It talks about almost the dying of Zenon Petroleum, and it has two major stories here. Number one was his clash with politics. In 1995, General Olusegun Obasanjo was sentenced to prison under the regime of Sani Abacha, right? And of course, in 1998, General Abdul Salam became general of the state Nigeria as it was during that time and released Obasanjo. Remember, he was sentenced to death, life imprisonment, right, over an allegation of a coup that happened in Nigeria. So Obasanjo eventually became president of Nigeria in 1999. Now, so let's look back to 1995, the year he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Guess who led the tribunal? A man named late General Patrick Azusa. And do you know who that man is? He was Femi Otedola's very good friend. Remember when he was running the business Center Force, he also engaged himself with selling of cars, and that was where he got to meet many of these military men. He was friends with top military guys under the regime of Sani Abacha. Now, how does this affect Zenon Petroleum? When Obasanjo became president, guess who he's coming for first? He's coming for all the people that sentenced him to prison. So he immediately retired all the top army generals, which of course General Caesar was part of that retirement plan. But they started telling the news to Obasanjo how that they sold a lie to him that Zenon was allegedly owned by the military. But of course, from what we've read in this book, we saw the step-by-step on how Femi Otedola built this business from scratch to the level it was at the time. So this was a huge blow on him. Imagine you being the president of a country and you have to supply diesel at a very wholesale price to your enemy. So that was something that couldn't happen. So immediately, his brand, Zenon, was cut off from direct supply from NNPC. He didn't even give him face or whatever. So that was a very, 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 very huge blow on him. It was going to affect the profit margin by far. He recalls that one time he also went to see Obasanjo by himself. He took General Caesar with him so that they could go and apologize. As they got to Hilton, that was in 1998 when Obasanjo came out. Heat broke out, so he asked who gave the order to put me in prison. Caesar, of course, being a trained soldier, says he takes the responsibility. So the meeting ended with Obasanjo giving them an instruction to go and raise him money for his election that was coming up in 6 weeks, which was in 1999. So Caesar didn't know that Obasanjo would win. According to him, Obasanjo would never be president. But Obasanjo was very confident, and of course he won the 1999 general elections and became Nigeria's first civilian president for 8 years to 2007. So that was one thing that affected Zenon. And politically, when power is against you, no matter how much of money you have, you would suffer because political power is higher than economic power. Of course, you already know that, I assume. So the second major challenge he faced that brought to the collapse of Zenon was, of course, his structural problems. But Nigeria and the world headed into a world economic crisis in 2008, which affected him because he went into a debt of 220 billion naira. He was owing banks. If you must have seen this particular page of the book that trended when the book came out newly, how he was owing different banks. He was owing Access Bank 25 billion, Zenith Bank 75 billion. He was owing this other bank 33 billion, 36 billion, 5 billion, 6 billion here and there. And all this debt amounted to 220 billion naira. But what was he left to do? He was forced to clear off this debt, and that was where he had the intervention of AMCON. What is AMCON? AMCON is the asset management company of Nigeria that helps get Nigerian banks off their grid when it concerns non-performing loans. Although some of the friends he had, including the MD of AMCON at the time, advised him why is he going through this route, because he was going to give up all his assets, including a new jet he purchased for $65 million, which the jet was being built, customized for him. Eventually, he didn't get that jet. AMCON took over the jet, and currently the jet is one of the jets used in the presidential fleet of Nigerian Airways. So this was the two major hits that happened to him in this lesson. One was his political crisis. Secondly was his debt crisis, which AMCON intervened. According to him, he said that was the best thing that happened to him, because that was all his instinct was saying. There were other ways he could have gone through to maneuver those debts, as a Nigerian, but he decided to choose that path and liquidating everything he had, which got him to start from the scratch. But there's something he also highlighted. He didn't completely start from the scratch like zero. He also had something left, but according to him, he felt like it. I mean, losing 220 billion is like starting from the scratch, my brother. The struggle. So that was all he was facing in this particular lesson. And there are various things it teaches here. Number one is that you have to trust your instincts. Number two is that you have to walk with the right hands at this point. One of the things that led to his collapse was not having the right management, because if he had, maybe his management would have looked at the pros and the cons of the investment he did in that year, 2008, where he bought the commodity that eventually sank, that eventually went to the drain. According to him, he asked the CEOs at the time, is this thing going to work? He said, yes, it will go well. But a structured management will look at things critically. They will look at the negative side, and they look at the positive side. And from the strength of their analysis, they can provide a very good and sound judgment, which will be used to procure whatever he wanted to do. And it has saved that company from that collapse. So in lesson 16, we learned that you need to just find a way. After his clash with the political guys, eventually he stopped receiving directly from NNPC. What did he do? He started buying from the persons they were allocating to. Why? Because he had cash, he had liquid. That was his escape route. So the third thing we want to see in this lesson was his problem with getting the right CEO. We talked about this in some lessons ago, that he had over 9 to 10 CEOs in how many years? In 4 or 5 years, which eventually got the right one. His company was beginning to have a bad brand look, that this company is not good at keeping CEOs. After 3 months, they will sack you. After 1 year, they will sack you. But he needed to get the right person. For me, I wrote down that getting the right CEO for him was like looking for the right soulmate, for the right wife to his business. And it involved not just competency, but involved someone that will take the vision as his own and run away from all kind of fraud, and see that the company forges ahead and getting to its destination. But that was a very difficult thing to find. He hired a born again believer, hired a pastor. He tried to groom a CEO from within. All of it failed. But this is the thing about business. Sometimes you just have to keep trying. You just have to keep trying. You try, you fail, you try, you fail, until you pick yourself and find yourself in the right position, whereby you can now begin to manage the crisis you have. Nobody is going to be perfect, of course. No time is going to provide you with perfection, but progress is guaranteed when the right people are in place and the right structures are in place. So we learn a lot from this lesson that talks about weathering the storm bravely and wisely, and that is ultimately what he did. And this was also the place where he started afresh by rebranding to Fort Oil, that eventually gave him a leap to his next level. I'll see you tomorrow in day 18 as we talk deeper about this book. Thank you so much.